Guys, this is OJ here to give more hot takes for an upcoming fight card. Today, we're going to talk about UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov. I'm going to cover a couple of fights I think go against the popular narrative set by either MMA YouTube, the odds makers, or any kind of prediction page online. Keep in mind, this is not financial advice. So if you guys lose on a parlay after listening to what I say, just know that I specifically said do not bet just because I think these are hot takes. That will happen this Saturday. Without wasting any more time, though, let's jump right into the video. Starting off with the main event. I'm not sure if this is a hot take because the odds favor Israel Adesanya slightly, but I see a lot of people throughout MMA YouTube picking Nasruddin Mavov to beat Israel Adesanya, so I thought to include this. I think Israel Adesanya is going to beat Nasruddin Imavov in a close decision. Now, I don't keep my disdain for Israel Adesanya a secret, but unless Izzy is completely washed, I don't think Imavov has the tools to definitively win this fight. To be honest, I do not rate Imavov all that highly. His fight with Brendan Allen was very shit, and he's been looking shit in a lot of his fights, like when he fought Roman Dolidze, and in parts when he fought Jared Cannonier. Overall, I do not think Imavov is special anywhere. I think the main argument people use against Adesanya is that Adesanya gives up his back too easily if the fight takes place on the ground. But I don't think that's really going to be a factor in this fight. Let me ask you guys, when was the last time Imavov ever effectively took someone's back and completely dominated from back taking? Maybe he got a few ground and pound TKOs or used his wrestling to turn the tide of fights, but I've never really seen Imavov win just by taking the back and either controlling him for his opponent for a whole round or looking for a submission. And on the feet, people are also claiming that Imavov cleanly outstrikes him, and I just do not see that. And let me be very clear. If Imavov clearly outstrikes Izzy, I will be very happy. But based on Imavov's style, I just do not see that whatsoever. Imavov is a shot selector with very dodgy cardio. That is a recipe for disaster against someone like Israel Adesanya, who is very sharp when you trade shot for shot with him. I believe Adesanya is still top 5 level in the middleweight division, and Imavov isn't a world beater in any aspect of the game. And again, because both guys are shot selectors, I think this will be very close by the numbers. But unlike most of the big guys on MMA YouTube, I'm saying Adesanya actually beats Nasruddin Imavov in a close 49-46 or 48-47 decision. Moving on to Michael Venom Page versus Shara Magomedov. Now, this next one, I think a lot of people can agree with me on, even though the odds makers might not. Shara Magomedov is pretty mid. I don't know what Shara has shown to the fans over his last four fights that would warrant him to be a this big of a favorite against Michael Venom Page. I don't even know how he's ranked at this point. His best win is against Armin Petrosian, and other than that, he's fought complete tomato cans. Other than Sharamagomedov's snappy kicks, the only move I see that is exceptional in Magomedov's arsenal is his double spinning back fist, which I'm gonna be for real, that only works so many times until people start figuring it out. Both fighters aren't gonna grapple, so I'm just going to look only at the stand up. And the more impactful shots, I will probably going to give it to Michael Venom Page. MVP isn't an opponent where Sharamagomedov can do what he normally does and fire off like 20 kicks in 10 seconds off the back foot. Both guys are counter strikers. I see this kind of being a very boring, uneventful fight where both guys are just very tentative to cross the void. If I had to pick one fighter to land the more impactful shots, however, it's going to be Michael Venom Page. I think Michael Venom Page is just faster than most guys, especially when he's moving up a weight class. And he's a lot more capable in the boxing than what we've seen from Sharamagomedov. I'm always going to pick the guy moving up one weight class, especially from welterweight to middleweight, because there's a huge gap in skill between welterweights and middleweights. Maybe Sharamagomedov, like, again, timed the leg kick, but other than that, I don't know what he does to catch MVP as MVP blitzes forward. I'm going to say that MVP wins a sound decision. Maybe he gets a knockout as well, but maybe not because again, MVP doesn't really throw that much output and who knows. But unless the judges are gonna pull a complete bullshit scorecard out of their ass, I say that MVP wins. Moving down the card, Vinicius Oliveira versus Said Nurmagomedov. I think Oliveira is going to soundly beat Said Nurmagomedov. Said Nurmagomedov does have wicked submissions in if the fight hits the ground, but he rarely takes the fight to the ground at all. The only time I've seen Said submit his opponents is if they shoot takedowns like Cody Stamen, or if they get in a clinch position and Said just uses his judo trips. Now, there are concerns that Vinicius Oliveira may not know how to defend a takedown, and his striking defense is less than ideal against top level competition. But Saeed does not have the tools in his kit to punish a guy like Vinicius Oliveira. He primarily relies on his snappy kicks to keep opponents out of range, and he relies on his speed to outwork opponents. He does not have the power in his strikes to gain any respect from Vinicius Oliveira defensively, and physically, I believe Oliveira will bully Saeed Nurmagomedov throughout the fight. Maybe Saeed wins a decision, but if he does, he's either going to have to pick apart Vinicius Oliveira for 15 minutes straight, or he's going to have to take Oliveira down immediately and then look for a sub. I expect Oliveira to drop Saeed a few times throughout the fight, or possibly look for the finish in a knockout, because there's just no possible answer for Saeed stylistically. Now, moving down the card, Fares Ziam versus Mike Davis. I'm gonna go with Fares Ziam on this one. Listen, Mike Davis is very underrated, and I would not be shocked if he wins because he's very good, but I think the momentum favors ZM right now. Mike Davis fights once a year at most, and I think the lack of activity will cost him against a guy like Siam who pulls through a lot of grueling 3 round fights. Maybe Mike Davis puts out Fares Siam early because he does carry some heavy hands and he has an arsenal of submissions once he takes you down to the ground. But if the fight goes longer to the later rounds, I suspect Zion will be able to pick apart Mike Davis because Zion is always in these grueling decisions and pulling through, whereas Mike Davis fights at most once a year. One thing I don't like about Mike Davis's game is that he's very reliant on early finishes. As the fight progresses, I do see him wear down, and it's not like he really throws a lot of strikes or like putting on a heavy grappling pace in a lot of his fights. I don't know what Mike Davis is going to look like, especially because he hasn't fought in like 11 months, which to be honest is kind of a quick turnaround for Mike Davis, but still. I think the momentum favors for Siam, and I'm gonna assume that the fight doesn't end in the first round because Ziam isn't a complete bum. Therefore, I expect Ziam to pull through in the later rounds and either get a 29-28 decision or possibly a finish, but more likely a 29-28 decision. Last but not least, I want to talk about the only women's fight on this card. Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Mayra Bueno Silva will be pretty hype. Now, Mayra Bueno Silva looked like complete dog shit in her fight with Raquel Pennington, but outside of that, she's looked pretty good in all of her fights. I think Bueno Silva is one of the fighters where the opponent needs to know how to grapple in order for her to have an entertaining fight, and Jasuda Vicious knows how to grapple. If I had to guess who would win the fight, I would go with Jasuda Vicious because of her current momentum right now. But Mayra Bueno Silva does carry some heavy knockout power in her hands. I think if she defends Jasudavici's takedowns and submissions, there's a chance that Bueno Silva can either drop her or get a possible TKO. Either way, I am somewhat looking forward to this fight because this is a fight between two martial artists and not a fight between two whores who are basically shaking their ass and tits for the gooters out there. I'm not really sure who's going to win off the top of my head, but I think this is going to be very underrated. And it's not just another WMMA fight where I'm just going to be completely honest here. I use as a bathroom break. All right, this is going to be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below the hot takes you guys have regarding UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia. Other than that, I'm going to be pretty busy throughout the week, but I will try to upload as consistently as possible. Until then, I will see you guys next time. Peace.